I sang of leaves of leaves of gold there grew. Of wind I sang, a wind there came, and in the branches blew. Beyond the sun, beyond the moon, the foam was on the sea, and by the strand of Silmirrillion there grew a golden tree. Beneath the stars of Evereve in Eldamar it shone, in Eldamar beside the walls of elven Tirion. There long the golden leaves have grown upon the branching years, and here beyond the sundering sea now fall the elven tears. O Lothlórien, the winter comes and bare the leafless day, the leaves are falling in the stream, the river flows away. O Lothlórien, too long I have dwelt upon this hither shore, and in a fading crown have twined the golden Eleanor. But if of ships I now should sing, what ship would come for me? What ship would bear me ever back across so wide a sea? So sings the Lady Galadriel to the fellowship in farewell, as they set forth from Lothlorien once more upon their quest. And the sound of her sweet, sad lament is carried along with them for a while, floating on the breeze, as they sit looking longingly back at her, not knowing at all what lies ahead, her white figure gradually fading from view as they leave her enchanted domain. Yet who is this lovely lady who has them all entranced? And what is this wondrous place, Lothlorien, that lies within the realm of Middle-earth, seemingly so removed from the trials and tribulations of men and dwarfs? And what does it mean for these questers to have resided here for a while along their way? Galadriel, of course, is the goddess of Tolkien's creation. Although she is not fully of his making, nor would he claim her to be, she is an archetype, a pre-existing element of the human psyche. We are all born knowing her, adoring her, loving her, longing for her in one or other of her numerous guises. We are in awe and fall willingly at her feet wherever she appears. She always is, and yet never was. She is ancient, and yet ever present, here and not here, in the blink of an eye, and always by her choosing. "The Lady of Lothlórien, Galadriel," cried Sam. "You should see her. Indeed you should, sir. I'm only a hobbit, and gardening's my job at home, sir, if you understand me. I'm not so much good at poetry, not at making it. A bit of comic rhyme, perhaps, now and then, you know, but not real poetry. So I can't tell you what I mean. It ought to be sung. You'd have to get Strider, Aragorn that is, or old Mr. Bilbo for that. But I wish I could make a song about her. Beautiful she is, sir. Lovely. Sometimes like a great tree in flower. Sometimes like a white daffodowndilly, small and slender like. Hard as diamonds, soft as moonlight, warm as sunlight, cold as frost in the stars, proud and far off as a snow maiden, and as merry as any lass I ever saw, with daisies in her hair in springtime. But that's all a lot of nonsense, and all wide of the mark." Arriving in her domain, those of the fellowship are battle-weary and stricken with grief. They have not long lost their beloved Gandalf, and cannot see their way forward without him. Frodo is wounded. They have been pursued at every turn, and the eye of the enemy is upon them. Yet here, in the midst of it all, they enter in, and by grace are granted respite and healing from their sorrows. "Do not let your hearts be troubled," says Galadriel in greeting. "Go now and rest, for you are weary with sorrow and much toil. Tonight you will sleep in peace." And they are given food and soft pillows on which to lay their weary heads. And as they drift into restful sleep, the elves of Lothlórien are heard softly singing their heartfelt laments for the fallen wizard Gandalf. And our travellers are soothed, and they gain comfort from the song. And it seemed then to Frodo that he had stepped over a bridge of time into a corner of the elder days, and was now walking in a world that was no more. In Rivendell there was the memory of ancient things. In Lorien the ancient things still lived on in the waking world. Evil had been seen and heard there. Sorrow had been known. The elves feared and distrusted the world outside. Wolves were howling on the wood's borders, but on the land of Lorien no shadow lay. Lovers of myth and story will no doubt find echoes and hints of Lothlorien in other enchanted realms frequented by the heroes of different tales. Taliesin of the Welsh Mabinogion journeys across the deep to the realm of Annwn. Oisin, the Irish hero, marries a fairy queen and travels with her across the sea to Tir na Know, the Celtic otherworld, where time is likewise forgotten in the way that we know, and all live long in peace and beauty. Dante, too, describes such a realm in his tales of the Paradiso in his La Divina Commedia. There is Thomas the Rhymer, too, gone and away to Fairy for 7 long years, and Tam Lin from the Scottish lore, and countless other questing souls and timeless realms. Tolkien was well acquainted with all this mythology, and draws upon the same mythic pool in his own enchanted tales, as he explains to us in his famous essay on fairy stories. And yet here in Lothlórien he paints such a rich and haunting picture, so brim-full of beauty, dignity, honour, poetry and song, that his readers are left with a longing for this land as deep can be. And we find ourselves falling as much in love with Lothlórien and its beautiful lady as the Sylvan elves themselves. Mel menoren sinna nura alla ero. Our love for this land, they sing, is deeper than the deeps of the sea. Now the story tells that the lady had the power of foresight, and knew full well what the arrival of the fellowship at her door portended, not only for the future of Middle-earth, but for her own realm of Lorien within it. For Galadriel herself was a ring-bearer, and through its power, evil had been kept from penetrating her borders. Doom, it seems, has now come to her domain, for if the ring that Frodo bears is destroyed, even whilst Middle-earth might be saved, the power of all the rings will diminish, and the high elves of Lorien will be forced to return across the seas from whence they came. So it is with great trepidation that she receives them, knowing they are the harbingers of Lothlorien's demise. And later, when they are alone together, the lady speaks openly to Frodo. Do you see now wherefore your coming is to us as the footstep of doom? For if you fail, then we are laid bare to the enemy. Yet if you succeed, then our power is diminished, and Lothlorien will fade, and the tides of time will sweep it away. We must depart into the west, or dwindle to a rustic folk of dell and cave, slowly to forget and to be forgotten. You are wise and fearless and fair, Lady Galadriel, said Frodo. I will give you the one ring if you ask for it. It is too great a matter for me. And now at last it comes, says the lady. You will give me the ring freely, and in place of a dark lord you will set up a queen, and I shall not be dark, but beautiful and terrible as the morning and the night, fair as the sea and the sun and the snow upon the mountain, dreadful as the storm and the lightning, stronger than the foundations of the earth. All shall love me and despair. And there issued a great light that illumined her alone and left all else dark. And she stood before Frodo, seeming now tall beyond measurement and beautiful beyond enduring, terrible and worshipful. Then the light faded, and suddenly she laughed again, and lo, she was shrunken, a slender elf woman, clad in simple white, whose gentle voice was soft and sad. I pass the test, she said. I will diminish and go into the west and remain Galadriel. So the danger passed over her, and the good queen was resolved unto her fate. And the days passed in this city of trees, and the fellowship was greatly renewed, and very soon the time came for them to depart. And the elves presented them with provisions for their journey, sturdy boats yet light, the like of which they had never seen, and provisions of elven ropes and clothing, bread of great sustenance, baked by Galadriel's own maidens. And reluctantly they set forth unto the river, and to the perilous task ahead. Though they had not travelled far, when the lady and her company appeared on a beautiful swan-like boat. You have been our dear guests, she says, drawing up beside them, but we have not yet eaten together. And she bid them tarry a while, and they pulled in their craft and shared a final meal, and afterward she presented them with gifts. For Aragorn, a sheath for his sword. For Legolas, an elven bow and quiver of arrows. For Sam, a box of earth with seeds from Galadriel's own garden. For Gimli, 3 of her golden hairs. And for Frodo, a light to guard and protect him along his way. May this gift be a light for you, she tells him, when all other lights have gone out. And the elves of Lorien, with long grey poles, then thrust them out into the flowing stream, and the rippling waters bore them slowly away. Lorien was slipping backward, like a bright ship, sailing on to a forgotten shore, while they sat, helpless, upon the margin of the grey and leafless world. Galadriel then sang to them in parting, in the ancient tongue of the High Elves. And finally, she called to them, Namarie, meaning farewell. Namarie, Namarie. And their hearts were heavy, for it was a fair place, and it had become like home to them, though they could not count the days and nights that they had passed there. And as their little boats slipped into the night, and the white-clad figure of Galadriel gradually faded and disappeared from view, they noticed that the moon, when it rose, was not where they expected it to be. "It's very strange," Sam said. "The moon's the same in the Shire, or it ought to be. But either it's out of its running, or I'm all wrong in my reckoning. You'll remember, Mr. Frodo, the moon was waning as we lay on the flat up in that tree. A week from the full, I reckon. And we'd been a week on the way last night, when up pops a new moon, as thin as a nail paring, as if we'd never stayed no time in the Elvish country. And perhaps that was the way of it," said Frodo. "In that land, maybe, we were in a time that is elsewhere gone by." So ended the days of the fellowship in Lothlorien, and none were ever to return there. Yet the memory of Galadriel and dearest Lothlorien remained with them always, and neither dimmed nor faded with time. And it is said that long after their great adventure was over, and the lady and her elves had departed Middle-earth, and the realm of Lothlorien had fallen to ruin, that the Malin tree seeds, gifted to Sam at their parting, thrived and grew high in the Shire, and were ever a wonder to all who beheld them.